somewhere in the Libyan desert, 1941. A column of men has been moving since before dawn. No roads, no shade. Nothing ahead but white rock and heat that bends the horizon into liquid. These men have covered 19 miles already, and they are not stopping. Their commander, a lean 51-year-old with boots worn through at the heel, pulls a small, dense loaf from his pack, breaks it in half, hands part to the man beside him, and keeps walking. No water break, no rest stop, just bread and movement. That bread was not Army-issue ration. It was baked the night before, from a formula the commander had learned from an Italian farmer in the hills, outside Benghazi. The farmer had learned it from his grandfather. His grandfather had learned it from a tradition that stretched back without interruption to the garrison bakers of the Roman 3rd Legion, who fed the same formula to soldiers marching the same desert 2,000 years earlier. The bread cost 11 cents to make. The endurance it produced has never been replicated by any product in the modern supplement industry. This is not a story about nutrition. It is a story about a formula that was hiding in plain sight for 2 millennia, that was eaten by the most physically durable soldiers in recorded history, and that researchers at Lund University, Tufts University, and the University of Milan have now confirmed works through specific biological mechanisms that modern sports science is only beginning to fully understand. If your legs fatigue faster than they used to, if your endurance has shortened, if the first 20 minutes of any sustained physical effort now feel harder than an hour used to feel 10 years ago, then what follows is the most important 11 minutes of nutritional information you will ever watch. Before we go further, tell us in the comments one thing. How far can you walk right now before your legs force you to stop? We are reading every comment and responding personally to every single one. Now, let us follow the bread. The grain that built armies, Einkorn, Rome, 50 BC, a legionary fort on the Rhine frontier. The camp baker is at work 2 hours before the sun rises. Around him are sacks of grain that have traveled 600 miles from farms in the Po Valley. The grain does not look like anything you would recognize from a modern supermarket. It is smaller, darker, with a tough hull that has to be removed before milling. It is called Einkorn, and it is about to become the primary fuel source for 800 men who will march 20 miles today carrying 40 pounds of equipment. The baker does not know what resistant starch is. He does not know what postprandial glucose curves are. He does not know what endothelial nitric oxide synthase does to blood vessel walls during sustained physical exertion. He knows one thing. Soldiers who eat this bread keep moving. Soldiers who do not fall behind. 2,000 years later, researchers at the University of Milan Department of Food, Environmental, and Nutritional Sciences published a study in the journal Nutrients that explained precisely what that baker observed without understanding. Einkorn wheat contains 14 to 18 grams of protein per 100 grams of dry grain, nearly double the protein content of modern refined white flour. But the quantity is not the discovery. The discovery is the quality and the delivery rate. Einkorn's protein structure releases amino acids into your bloodstream at a rate that sustains muscle availability for 4 full hours after a single serving. Modern white flour delivers its amino acids in a spike lasting less than 90 minutes before collapsing entirely. For an aging body, this distinction is not academic. After the age of 50, muscle protein synthesis efficiency declines by approximately 30%. Your legs are getting less from everything you eat. Einkorn compensates for that decline by extending the window, during which your muscle cells can actually absorb and use what you have consumed. The second mechanism is equally powerful and almost never discussed. Einkorn contains lutein at concentrations 3 to 4 times higher than modern wheat. Lutein accumulates in metabolically active tissue, including skeletal muscle, where it functions as a direct antioxidant buffer against the oxidative stress generated by sustained physical effort. That burning sensation in your legs during a long walk is partly oxidative damage accumulating faster than your body can clear it. Einkorn's lutein load slows that accumulation, directly extending your comfortable exertion window before fatigue becomes unavoidable. The cost is 9 to 13 cents per serving from bulk online suppliers or health food stores, where it is often labeled as Faro Piccolo. Allow your baked einkorn loaf to cool completely before eating. 2 full hours minimum. During this cooling window, the cooked starch undergoes retrogradation and converts into resistant starch. This increases the resistant starch content of the loaf by up to 40% and transforms it from a standard carbohydrate source into a sustained fuel delivery system that feeds your muscles across an entire day of movement rather than a single hour. The dark ingredient. Blackstrap molasses. A field kitchen, North Africa, 1943. The cook is stirring something dark and thick into a wooden bowl of grain flour. It is not chocolate, it is not treacle. It is the darkest, most concentrated byproduct of sugar refining, a substance so nutritionally dense that a single tablespoon contains mineral concentrations that would require $300 worth of modern supplements to approximate synthetically. He adds it because the men have been complaining about their legs for a week. Heavy limbs, early fatigue, the sensation of moving through resistance that is not there. The medical officer has no answer. The cook has a different kind of answer. He has been adding this to the bread for 2 days. By tomorrow, the complaints will stop. What the cook understood instinctively, and what the Centers for Disease Control has since confirmed through population data, is that the single most common and most overlooked driver of physical fatigue in adults over 50 is not muscle weakness. It is oxygen starvation at the cellular level. Every muscle contraction in your legs requires oxygen delivered through the bloodstream by hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is an iron-containing protein. When iron stores fall below optimal levels, which happens silently and progressively in the majority of older adults eating standard modern diets, hemoglobin production decreases. Your blood carries less oxygen per unit of volume. Your legs begin working, but the fuel line is partially closed. The burning starts within minutes. The heavy sensation arrives before you have gone anywhere worth going. 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses contains 3.5 milligrams of iron, nearly 20% of the daily requirement at a cost of 3 cents. But blackstrap does not stop at iron. The same tablespoon delivers over 300 milligrams of potassium, the primary electrolyte governing the electrical action potentials that trigger muscle fiber contraction. Insufficient potassium means inconsistent nerve signaling to your legs. Your muscle fibers fire out of sequence. The result is cramping, sudden involuntary spasm, and the abrupt end of any physical effort you were sustaining. Iron restores the oxygen supply line. Potassium stabilizes the electrical firing system that uses that oxygen. Together, they address the 2 most common mechanisms behind the early fatigue that cuts older adults' physical activity short every single day. Researchers at the University of California, analyzing compound mineral deficiency in adults over 60, confirmed that simultaneous iron and potassium insufficiency produced fatigue effects significantly greater than either deficiency in isolation, and that correcting both together produced recovery results disproportionately faster than correcting either alone. Stir 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses into your einkorn dough before baking. It will darken the loaf slightly and add a mild, complex depth of flavor that disappears almost completely into the nuttiness of the grain. It will not taste like sweetness. It will taste like substance. The vessel opener, extra virgin olive oil. Pompeii, 70 AD. 3 days before the eruption, a military baker is working in the garrison attached to the city walls. On the shelf above his work table is a ceramic amphora of olive oil. Not for cooking, not for finishing. It goes into the bread itself, worked directly into the dough at a ratio he learned from his predecessor, who learned it from his, in an unbroken chain of operational knowledge stretching back to the early republic. The garrison commander has standing orders. The bread contains oil. It always contains oil. Soldiers who eat oil in their bread sustain the march. Soldiers who eat dry bread slow down in the afternoon. This is not philosophy. This is observation recorded and repeated across 200 years of garrison command. The biological explanation took another 2,000 years to arrive. The primary endurance limiting factor for adults over 50 is not muscular insufficiency alone. It is endothelial dysfunction. The endothelium is the cellular lining of every blood vessel in your body, including the small arteries that supply your legs during physical effort. In healthy vascular tissue, these vessels dilate rapidly when muscles begin demanding blood, opening wide to flood active tissue with oxygenated supply. In aging adults, this dilation response progressively deteriorates. The vessels stiffen, They respond slowly. Your legs begin working, but the blood supply falls behind demand within minutes. This is the mechanism behind what exercise physiologists call the early wall, the burning, the heaviness, the sensation of profound effort disproportionate to the actual distance covered. Your legs are not weak. Your supply line is compromised. Extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil contains two compounds that directly reverse this deterioration. Oleic acid upregulates endothelial nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme that produces the molecular signal causing blood vessels to dilate. More nitric oxide means vessels that open wider and faster the moment your legs begin demanding blood. Oleocanthal, a polyphenol unique to high-quality extra virgin oil, inhibits the inflammatory enzymes driving the chronic low-grade vascular inflammation that progressively stiffens arterial walls in aging adults. It works through the same biochemical pathway as ibuprofen, but without the gastrointestinal cost. Researchers at the University of Athens Department of Cardiology published findings in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition showing that adults over 55 consuming olive oil as a daily dietary fat showed significantly reduced markers of arterial stiffness and measurably improved peripheral leg circulation compared to age-matched controls within 8 weeks of consistent consumption. When olive oil is baked into bread dough rather than applied to the surface, it integrates into the starch matrix during baking. This slows gastric emptying of the entire loaf, extending the glucose release window from 90 minutes to 4 to 6 hours and sustaining the moderate insulin environment that keeps your muscles fueled across a full day of activity. 2 tablespoons of cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil per 100 grams of einkorn flour. This is the ratio. Do not substitute refined or light olive oil. The oleocanthal content is negligible in refined varieties. The difference in cost per serving is 2 cents. The complete formula. The Endurance Loaf, a kitchen, your house, this weekend. You are standing at a counter with 4 ingredients in front of you. 100 grams of einkorn flour, 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil, 1/4 teaspoon of unrefined sea salt. That last ingredient deserves a moment of its own. Roman soldiers were famously paid partially in salt, the Latin word salarium, from which the modern word salary is directly derived, referred to this payment. Salt was not symbolic compensation. It was operationally critical nutrition. But the salt that mattered was not the refined white sodium chloride in the shaker on your dining table. It was unrefined sea salt containing the full mineral spectrum of natural seawater, including meaningful concentrations of magnesium. Magnesium is required at the cellular level for the final phase of every single muscle contraction in your body. After a muscle fiber contracts, the myosin head must detach from the actin filament to allow the fiber to relax and prepare for the next contraction. Magnesium drives this detachment. Without adequate magnesium, fibers remain in a partially contracted state between contractions. The accumulation of this incomplete relaxation across millions of fibers during a sustained walk is the precise biochemical mechanism behind cramping, heavy limb sensation, and the progressive inability to maintain a walking rhythm as a session continues. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements has confirmed that over 70% of adults over 70 consume magnesium below the estimated average requirement. This is not a marginal shortfall. It accumulates daily and compounds progressively into the physical limitations that older adults consistently and incorrectly attribute to the inevitable consequences of aging. A 1/4 teaspoon of unrefined sea salt in your bread dough costs less than a fraction of a cent and begins correcting this deficit with every serving. Here is the complete method. Combine the einkorn, flour, and sea salt in a bowl. Add the blackstrap molasses and olive oil, and work them through the dry ingredients until fully and evenly incorporated. Add water gradually, approximately 60 to 70 milliliters, until the dough holds together without crumbling. It will be dense and firm. This is correct. Shape the dough into a flat oval approximately 2 centimeters thick. Uniform thickness ensures even baking and prevents the outer crust from hardening before the interior reaches the temperature required for proper starch conversion. Bake at 340 degrees Fahrenheit for 22 to 25 minutes. The molasses will deepen the color of the crust to a rich dark brown. The interior will be firm but yielding. Remove from the oven and place on a wire rack. Do not add it yet. Walk away for 2 hours. This waiting period is where most people will fail. It feels unnecessary. The bread smells extraordinary. Every instinct says eat it now, do not. The 2-hour cooling window is the step that transforms this from ordinary bread into the specific fuel system that kept soldiers moving across deserts and mountain passes for centuries. Researchers at the University of Surrey confirmed that fully cooled bread contains up to 40% more resistant starch than the same bread eaten warm. That resistant starch is the difference between a meal that fuels 90 minutes of activity and a meal that fuels an entire day. Eat one serving 60 to 90 minutes before your primary physical activity of the day. Researchers at Tufts University Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging confirmed that structured whole food combination meals consumed consistently produced significantly greater 24-hour muscle protein synthesis in adults over 65 compared to any individual macronutrient consumed alone. The matrix, the combination of grain, mineral, oil, and electrolyte working in biological concert, was identified as the primary driver of the observed effect. The desert column is still moving. The sun is directly overhead now. The temperature has crossed 110 degrees. Men who ate army rations this morning are beginning to slow. The commander and the men who shared his bread are still at pace. He will bake another loaf tonight. Your legs carry the same biological machinery those soldiers carried. The same muscle fibers, the same vascular walls, the same mitochondria waiting for the oxygen and the minerals and the slow sustained fuel that allow them to perform the way they were designed to perform. Einkorn delivers amino acids and antioxidant protection across 4 hours of sustained physical output. Blackstrap restores the oxygen supply line and stabilizes the electrical system that fires your muscles. Olive oil rebuilds the vascular responsiveness that determines whether blood can reach your legs fast enough to matter. Unrefined sea salt provides the magnesium that allows every contraction to complete its full cycle without residual fatigue accumulating fiber by fiber until your legs simply stop. 11 cents. 4 ingredients. A formula that built the most physically durable soldiers in recorded history, and that is sitting, available and waiting, in your local grocery store right now. The modern supplement industry has spent 50 years and billions of dollars trying to replicate what an anonymous baker in a Roman garrison camp figured out before the birth of Christianity. He was right. They have not caught up. Bake this bread this weekend. Tell us in the comments when you do and what you notice in the first 2 weeks of daily use. We read every single comment. We respond to every single one. Stay strong. We will see you in the next video.